Hello and welcome to ACT Reading for Owls. We are at week number 10. Today we're going to start with another big tip. We're going to read a passage. This one is a humanities style passage about the myth of Gabriel Garcia Marquez. We're going to answer a set of 10 practice questions and I'll share with you what you got to do for next week. Your big tip for today is adapted from Windward Academy, and it's actually about the structure of the ACT and when the reading portion occurs. This portion of the exam occurs after the 10-minute break that takes place halfway through the ACT, so you need to be super focused right when you start. When you sit down for the reading section, you should feel sharp and focused. Believe in yourself, believe that you're going to find the answers quickly, make sure you practice proper pacing, and be mentally prepared to sit down and do it. During that break, I would highly recommend that you take a walk, get a drink of water, use the restroom, really wake your body up so that your brain is also woken up, and so that when you sit down for the reading portion of the exam, you feel refreshed and you feel ready to get right back into it. So now that we've got that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and move on to practice passage number 3. Like I said earlier, this is a humanities style passage. This is adapted from The Myth of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, How the Colombian Writer Really Changed Literature by Michael Wood. Here in just a moment, I'm going to screen share the passage and the questions, but as always, you can find a PDF of the passage and questions using the link in the description below. The practice exam below has 4 passages. We're doing the third one today. We're going to do number 4, the last one, in our next video. I will survey the questions and read the passage out loud. Fast forward the video when I begin reading if you'd rather read the passage on your own. Then we're going to answer the questions together. I do recommend having scrap paper down to write down your guesses. You should be keeping track of your guesses. If you're just waiting for me to say the right answer, you're really not getting everything out of this that you could be getting. Make sure that you're taking a guess. If you want, have a competition in class with your friends, see who can get the most right, or just have a competition with yourself, week to week, see if you can keep track of how many you get right, and then see if you can't watch yourself improve, hopefully over time. And as always, a note on timing. The time we take to do this is going to be longer than what you would take on a real ACT, because I'm going to be pausing and explaining items, and that doesn't happen when you take a real ACT. So if you're worried about this taking a lot of time, don't worry about that. Let's go ahead and flip over here to the passage. As always, we are going to briefly survey the questions before we actually read this out loud. So let's go ahead and get started. Number 21, the primary function of the first paragraph. So we'll have to look out for what sort of heavy lifting does that first paragraph do. Based on the passage, which of the following best describes the passage author's opinion of Garcia Marquez's writing? So what does the writer think about him? The illumination mentioned in lines 5 and 37 most nearly refers to. The passage most strongly suggests that a reader might be a little surprised, even disappointed, while reading Martin's book because Martin, as it's used in line 24, the word constrained most nearly means. So we're looking out for illumination. This quote right here, surprised, disappointed, then constrained. According to Garcia Marquez, his grandmother told fantastic stories as if they were true because she. The passage indicates that the comments Garcia Marquez makes about his fame demonstrate his. According to Garcia Marquez, he might have become something better if he had. The passage author indicates that Martin's biography helps balance Garcia Marquez's. So something about his personality, perhaps. As it's used in line 87, the word master refers to. All right, so we have a few things to keep an eye out for. I'm going to go ahead and begin reading this out loud. If you would like to read this by yourself, of course, you can find it in the PDF linked below. Many years later, and many times over, the writer Gabriel Garcia Marquez was to remember the day he discovered how to set about writing his great novel. He was driving from Mexico City to Acapulco when the illumination hit him. There's that word. He turned the car around, went home, and locked himself away for 18 months. When he reappeared, he had the manuscript of 100 Years of Solitude in his hands. When Gerald Martin, around the middle of his rich and resourceful biography of Garcia Marquez, starts to tell this story, the reader may be a little surprised, even disappointed. I remember seeing that in a question. Let's read this carefully. He had not been driving long that day when Garcia Marquez, as if in a trance, turned the Opel around and drove back in the direction of Mexico City. And then, up to this point, Martin has not been challenging what he calls the subject's mythomania. How could he, since it's the basis of the writer's art and fame? But he has not been retelling the myths either. He has been grounding them, laying out the pieces of what became the puzzles. And that's what he's doing here too. After and then, Martin writes in mock apology, it seems a pity to intervene in the story at this point, but the biographer feels constrained to point out that there have been many versions of this story, and that the one just related cannot be true. The truth was no doubt less miraculous, to use Martin's word. The writer probably continued to Acapulco. He didn't live in total seclusion for 18 months, and Garcia Marquez wasn't starting a new book, he was reviving an old one. What Garcia Marquez found was a way of telling it. He would combine, as he frequently said, the narrative tone of his grandmother. I remember reading about her in a question down below. The narrative tone of his grandmother with that of the author Franz Kafka. She told fantastic stories as if they were true, because for her, they were true. Kafka told them that way because he was Kafka. After his moment of illumination, there's that word again, Garcia Marquez came more and more to look for and often to find the truth and the fantastic, to pursue whatever truth was lurking in the non-literal reading of literally presented events. Just because the miracle didn't happen as the story says it did, doesn't mean there wasn't a miracle. 100 Years of Solitude changed Garcia Marquez's life entirely, and it changed literature. When he got into the car to set out for Acapulco, he was a gifted and hardworking writer, certainly. When he got out of the car, he was on his way to the Nobel Prize, which he won in 1982. Garcia Marquez made many jokes about his fame over the years. These jokes are witty and complicated acts of gratitude for a destiny the writer was sure could have been quite different. One of his finest sentences, written in an article in 1983, concerns a dream of the life he might have led if he had stayed in his isolated birthplace of Aracataca, Colombia. I would not perhaps be the same person I am now, but maybe I would have been something better, just a character in one of the novels I would never have written. The term mythomania certainly covers Garcia Marquez's stories about his life and plenty of his journalism, but his fiction is different. It takes pieces of already thoroughly mythified reality. There is scarcely an extravagant incident in his novels and stories that doesn't have some sort of basis in specific local fact or legend and finds the perfect, unforgettable literary home for them. But Garcia Marquez neither copies nor further mythifies these facts and legends. He honors them, to borrow a well-placed word from Martin. Over the dark story of conquest and violence, tragedy and failure, he laid the other side of the continent, the carnival spirit, the music and the art of the Latin American people, the ability to honor life even in its darkest corners. To honor life, I take Martin as saying, is to celebrate dignity, courage, and style wherever they are found and in whatever forms they take. It is not to deny darkness or even to believe it has its compensations. Martin's biography is itself rather a dark affair, appropriately, since he is telling the life of a man whose autobiography is an elaborate historical myth. In Garcia Marquez's own accounts, his life is both hard and magical, but it's never sad, and Martin evokes the sorrow that must lurk in such a life. There is perhaps a slight imbalance in Martin's insistence on the writer's sadness, an excess of melancholy, but it's a good corrective to Garcia Marquez's own joking cheerfulness and elaborate ironies, and we can return to the master if we get too depressed. There we go, beautiful passage. By the way, if you've never read 100 Years of Solitude, it is a wonderful book. I was halfway hoping when I first saw this it would be an excerpt from the book itself, but unfortunately, not quite the case, but that's okay. Number 21, the primary function of the first paragraph is to, pause this and see if you can't find the answer. I'll scroll back up for just a sec if you need to pause. The correct answer to number 21 is C, relate a story about Garcia Marquez that Martin discusses in his biography. This is about the moment where he got the idea for 100 Years of Solitude, sort of got the inspiration to begin writing. And Garcia Marquez has told maybe a different story than what actually happened and how he was, inspired to write this book. So C is going to be the right answer. That is a craft and structure question, by the way. Number 22. Based on the passage, which of the following best describes the passage author's opinion of Garcia Marquez's writing? Pause this and see if you can't find the answer. The correct answer here is F. He considers Garcia Marquez to be a gifted writer. And that really comes across in the passage when the author compliments him and really, relates how great he's going to be. In particular, this line up here, when he got into the car to set out for Acapulco, he was a gifted and hardworking writer, certainly. When he got out of the car, he was on his way to the Nobel Prize, which he won in 1982. That really makes it seem like, he's a really, really gifted writer, and the author recognizes that. That is a craft and structure question as well. Number 23, the illumination mentioned in lines 5 and 37 most nearly refers to, I'm going to scroll up, you can pause if you need to, then I'll scroll back down here and give you the answer. There we go. There's illumination up there. And there's illumination down here. The correct answer for number 23 is A, the realization Garcia Marquez had concerning the approach he should take in writing 100 Years of Solitude. In both of those usages of illumination, it sort of is describing this moment where the author is suddenly inspired to do something, realizes a way around something, or perhaps a solution, the right path forward. And so it's, getting a new idea. And so A is going to be the right answer there. And that is a key ideas and details question. Number 24. The passage most strongly suggests that a reader might be a little surprised, even disappointed, while reading Martin's book, because Martin, I'll scroll back up in case you need to pause. 11 through 12. There we go. The correct answer here is H, interrupts a familiar story about Garcia Marquez to claim that it's not true. Here, the author sort of counters what Garcia Marquez has told about how he came up with this idea and got inspired to write 100 Years of Solitude. And so, sort of apologizing to the reader here, you might be surprised, even disappointed to learn that what the author himself says isn't quite accurate. So 24 is going to be H. And that is actually an integration of knowledge and ideas question. We don't see a whole lot of those, but here's one of them out in the wild. Number 25. As it is used in line 24, the word constrained most nearly means, scroll back up and pause for you. There it is. The correct answer for number 25 is B, compelled. Let's scroll back up here so we can check it out one more time. Yeah, the biographer feels constrained to point out that there have been many versions of the story. So the biographer, the writer, feels like he really has no choice but to, point out that the truth might be different than what Garcia Marquez has let on. The biographer feels that he's maybe sort of duty bound to tell the truth in a sense. If you chose C, coerced, because that also maybe has a sense of, force to it, coerced is going to be way too strong of a word. To be coerced means that you're acting against your will. Perhaps you're acting because somebody else is really giving you no choice. But here the biographer is sort of feeling like he has no choice himself, that he's sort of bound to tell the truth, but it's not like someone else is forcing him to, it's not like it's his only choice that he could possibly make. So for number 25, B is going to be the proper answer. It's going to sort of hit just that right line for this. And 25B, that is a craft and structure question. Number 26. According to Garcia Marquez, his grandmother told fantastic stories as if they were true because she, pause this and see if you can find the right answer. The correct answer to 26 is G. She believed they were true. And we can come back up and try to find grandma again. Here it is. Yeah. Yeah, combining grandma with Kafka. That is a heck of a combo right there. She told fantastic stories as if they were true because for her, they were true. So 26, of course, G, and that is going to be a key ideas and details kind of question if you're keeping track. Number 27, the passage indicates that the comments Garcia Marquez makes about his fame demonstrate his, pause this and see if you can find the right answer. The correct answer for 27 is C, gratitude that his life has unfolded the way it has. And I think I remember reading about that right over here. Garcia Marquez made many jokes about his fame over the years. These jokes are witty and complicated acts of gratitude for a destiny the writer was sure could have been quite different. So he's very grateful that his life has turned out the way that it has. So 27 then, of course, is C, and that is a key ideas and details question. Number 28. According to Garcia Marquez, he might have become something better if he had, I'm going to scroll back up to line 57 just in case you need to reread and pause. Remember to start reading a little bit before the line in question too, just so you have some context. I would personally start reading like up here. Okay. The correct answer for number 28 is J. If he had stayed in Arakataka, Colombia, if he'd sort of stayed in this town that he knows so well, if he would have stayed there and not become a writer, maybe he would have become a character who he never would have written about, I think is what it said up there. 28 then is a key ideas and details question. Number 29, the passage author indicates that Martin's biography helps balance Garcia Marquez's. Pause this and see if you can find the right answer. All right. Number 29 here is an integration of knowledge and ideas question, and these questions tend to be the most difficult. So if you get this right, I want you to feel really good about yourself, okay? Number 29 is B, joking cheerfulness and elaborate ironies. We can look at the very end of the passage up here to support that answer. Right up here where he's talking about the difference between the writer and then sort of the writer's personality and then also how they write. It's a good corrective to Garcia Marquez's own joking cheerfulness and elaborate ironies, and we can return to the master if we get too depressed. So if you had B for 29, you should definitely pat yourself on the back, and if you didn't quite get it, that's okay. Maybe you'll get a good one next time, a hard one next time. And number 30, as it is used in line 87, the word master refers to, we just read that up there, that's fantastic. Pause this and see if you can't find the right answer. The correct answer to number 30 is J, Garcia Marquez. Coming back up here, it's a good corrective to Garcia Marquez's own joking cheerfulness and elaborate ironies, and we can return to the master if we get too depressed. 30 is a key ideas and details question as well. And there we have it. Here are the answers one more time, just in case you need them. Feel free to pause the screen if you need to double check anything. All right, and that is another 10 practice questions down. Next week, the video is going to feature the same practice exam. We're going to read the last passage together and practice answering the questions. You do not need to do anything at all outside of AI time in order to prepare for next week. You're going to continue to learn tips, tricks, and strategies for accurately answering questions on the exam. I will give you a heads up for this last one. I'm probably not going to read all of the questions out loud for you. I would like to start maybe doing a little bit less of the read aloud now that we've gone through almost 2 full tests. Obviously, I won't be able to read along with you on the actual ACT. So, you know, putting a little bit more of the responsibility on you for doing stuff like that, I think would be helpful at this point. I'll still be there with you. We'll still explain answers and talk about everything together. But it might be a little bit of time to, you know, push you out of the nest a little bit, so to speak. So thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of your day.